So again, this is literally take number 3 of this video. I don't know what was going on with the video footage and the audio, but there would be certain parts of the video, usually around the same time, that 8-minute mark, it would just stop working. And then continue on, but also be like very spotty. So I'm trying to in a different video format rather than in before. So here we go. Also, it's been a while, long time no see. I know I've been gone, lifing and growing and diving deeper into myself. Because for this video in particular, I needed to do some additional work. Though a master, no one is exempt from life. Everyone's going to go through their own path, their own processes. Because I know I process things in a different way than you might process things. All in all, we all going to go through a process, regardless of whatever title you may have. And as you clicked on the thumbnail, you saw what it said. This is about the ego. And the funny thing about the ego is there's not actually supposed to be an ego death. Like, I know a lot of things are talking about an ego death or removing the ego or killing the ego. Excuse me. But I realized that no, it's not about killing the ego or the ego dying per se. It's more of you keeping your ego in check. Because your ego is your lower self, the masculine, the divine masculine. But when it's a wounded masculine, it's in its ego. Your ego is going to be making the decisions. And here's the thing also about the ego. The ego isn't bad. There is nothing bad whatsoever about the ego. In the nature of the lower self, it is to protect. And it's to protect you on every aspect of life. From like being bullied, like other life stuff with bills and monetary stuff like that, as well as like, let me just put it that way, just from life. Your ego is protecting you from life. If the ego goes unchecked, yeah, the ego will start doing some wild stuff. The ego might lead you into becoming a narcissist, or some variant of toxic person that we all know about. And that's what the ego is in an unchecked state. We have to bring our egos back into the equation. Put this on vibrate. So, what that can look like is first understanding what the role the ego or the lower self plays into becoming your authentic self. So, as I mentioned before, you have your lower self, and with this, I'll also mention the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm gonna say this right now, and I might say this again. Regardless of what religious or Tao or way of life you follow, read this book. Because this book is going to tell you how it is. No riddles, no symbolism that can be misconstrued to be something else because someone reads it and interprets it as another way than it is other person reading the same line for into Christianity here, and the Frankenstein version of the book that they have called the King James Version of the Bible. And I'm also gonna talk about that a little bit too. For all you people that read that book, please, it's for your highest good. Open that mind, open that eye to see that that there's more wrong or missing from the book than there is actually in the book. It will be in your best interest to go to the Ethiopian Bible, the very first version of the Bible, the oldest version, I should say, of the Bible that the King James Version was derived from. There are books missing. There's so much information missing, and it's keeping you in a box. Trust me, as someone who used to be Christian, I had questions, and I went to go find answers, and I found those answers. Though you seek, ye shall find. Moving on. Bhagavad Gita. So this book is going to tell you how it is. Imagery for here is going to be King Soul and King Ego. This video is going to be about King Ego. King Soul, we'll do that another time. But King Ego. Well, hold on, let me bring that back. So I'm going to zoom in on these so we can get a really good look at them. And you will see that they're pretty much identical. Like down from the chakras, except the names of them. King Ego is what Christianity will refer to as the sinner. Majority of the people in this existence fall into King Ego. There's a small handful of us who fall into King Soul, which is Christ consciousness, which is the 5D, which is like operating from your higher self. And that's the thing with me talking about the ego and your lower self. Your ego is a wounded version of your lower self, which is your divine masculine. Your masculine energies are being wounded to a certain degree, or have been wounded to a certain degree. And it's up to you as the eternal self to not bring. Well, first have a solid foundation in your lower chakras, and then pull that energy up, or more so, guide that energy up to be present in the heart, and then to further go into your higher chakras, so that you can be in alignment with yourself. And the process can look different for everyone. The purpose of, I'm going to plug here, the purpose of me even talking about this is giving you guys what I do with my mentoring, which I'm currently doing a sale. But I have this here, doing 30% off on my mentoring for the full process for the Self Expanded, where we go through each and every piece of expanding the self, which is like really an upward ascension kind of thing. But for those of you who need to hear this, here it is. You need to bring your ego back. Whoever that person, that aspect, that archetype, whoever that was, bring them back to the table. Because yes, you need your higher self. You need your Christ consciousness. And yes, you need your present self, the eternal self, the inner child. But that ego, the lower self, you need that guy too, or that person too, or whatever you want to identify as. You need them to come back to the table. The three of you need to be at the table. With the guidance of higher self, you are making the decisions, while the lower self is protecting you. And that's your instincts. Those are like all the things you need for survival. And in this part, I want to talk about how my experience was with that. And I realized I actually did not actually go through an ego death. As many times I may have thought I did before, I actually never went through an ego death. Mine was more of suppressing the ego. I guess because I felt I still needed it at the time. And over the years, mainly these last two, because these last two were the heaviest emotionally, where I really suppressed the ego a lot. So much so where it's like, for myself, it involved like, how can I put this? I'll just explain it in what imagery came to mind when I was going through the process of reviving the ego, or having the ego have more of a say at the table. This metaphorical, symbolic table is you're in the middle, and then there's the like how cartoons would put it, where you have the devil on one shoulder, and the angel on another shoulder. The devil is not a devil. It's not. Like, it's not evil. It's not bad. The ego isn't evil. The ego isn't bad. You need the ego. You need your lower self. You need that protection. You need that instinct to be on point, while also being guided. Wait, hold on. Okay, whoa. Let me take some steps back again. Let me talk about Bhagavad Gita and why this is needed. Because I think I did, but I want to reiterate it one more time because something else came to mind. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about how you need your ego or your lower self in order to get to Christ consciousness. Like I mentioned before, with having that solid, strong foundation within yourself, within your survival tactics, and whatever you need to do to make sure you are safe and feeling safe. You need that in order to get your Christ conscious. And the Bhagavad Gita talks about that. And that can look like doing things to make yourself feel safe, like mantras, meditations, identifying in which ways you feel unsafe and addressing those ways you feel unsafe. The processes can look different for everyone. For me, it is a matter of just acknowledging that I am safe. Like most of the things that come to mind that are like something bad happening aren't actually happening. It's all in my head. And then for the times that things do happen, it's not really bad. It's just an experience. Our perspectives have been conditioned to view things as bad as good. Hence, the whole thing with the knowledge of good and evil. I mean, and then you say it again, good and evil, because in the grand scheme of it all, there is no good and evil. It's just your perception of what is good and evil. Because we can all agree on a moral scale that, yeah, some things aren't that great. But once you remove judging something that's good or bad, it's just an experience. Moving on. So, with my experience with not reviving, but allowing the ego to fully express itself, it was like the visuals that came to mind was of me going to like a dungeon, something like something like straight out of Naruto talking to Kurama type stuff. That's a good analogy too. That is brilliant. That just came to mind. So a good analogy here is the Naruto Kurama thing. So, and it's also so cool because the seal is right at his sacral chakra. Huh. So the dynamic is kind of like that, to where you have to get to fully know your ego in order for it to help you reach your higher self. And that, oh yeah, and in this analogy, that's exactly what happened with Naruto when becoming the Hokage and one of the strongest ninja in all the Naruto verse. So, or perhaps the strongest ninja in all the Naruto verse. He needed his ego, quote unquote, Kurama, until I think Kurama actually dies. I stopped following Boruto. Like, I stopped watching Boruto around like episode 18 because it was way too slow. I just keep up with what's going on whenever I see something on social media. But yes, similarly to that, it was with myself. And going to this cage, like it literally, I guess my imagination brought that to mind because I watched Naruto as a kid, but it was literally like going to this dungeon, reaching this gate, and the ego was back there. And I would also like to say, we are also being conditioned to think that the ego is bad. I know I said this before, but in most media, when the ego is talked about, it's always seen as the ego is portrayed as the bad guy or portrayed as getting in the way. Because once upon a time, I used to think that my ego was getting in the way because something happened in a past relationship, and I was like, dang, my ego was in the way. And I was like, let me nip this in the bud. Nipping it in the bud was not killing the ego, but suppressing the ego, like chaining them up and putting them in that dungeon, metaphorically, energetically speaking. And what were the other events? Oh, let me talk about this too. So, how these events or this imagery transpired in my head, it was literally like a dream. A lot of meditation processes, when you're going through something in your past, something in your emotions, if the imagery in your mind plays out like a dream, allow it to. That's the beauty of meditation, and that's the purpose of meditation, to allow your thoughts to go wherever and then bring them back to center, which is here within the body. Body awareness is being present, just being aware of what you feel, what you hear, all the sensations in your body, especially when it comes to the fusion of the 5 elements, where you have that body awareness, where you feel where your organs are. Back to what I was talking about though. Yeah, at the gate. Oh yeah, that's what it was, the ego. So, for example, the one that stuck with me the most is Samurai Jack, when clearly the ego of Jack is talking about all the things that he did to make sure that they achieved the goal of defeating Aku, right? And can I play that scene? I'm gonna play it anyway and see what happens.
I see why your path to the sword remains clouded.
This isn't the path? I don't understand. Then you must show me the way.
I cannot. It is not for me to show you your path.
That's fortune cookie nonsense. He knows where it is. He just won't tell you. Please, you must tell me.
That is something you must earn.
Earn? After everything we've done, everything we've been through, the death, the loss, the suffering. Who are you to deny us what is rightfully ours? Enough. We have lost the sword because of you. I have kept us alive. He's the one who has taken it from us. He knows where it is. No. I've let you consume me for far too long. You're in my way. You are the one who has kept the past hidden. Your anger, your frustration. You're a fool! You have blinded us, but now I can see it. You need me! Now you are cleansed.
So yeah, you see the scene, and if I recall correctly, because I played the scene and I'm just trying to remember it. If I recall correctly, he says something along the lines of "You need me," and in most cases, when the ego is talking, that's what the ego says. Well, in media, it's telling you, the present self, that you need him. And the fact of the matter is, you actually do. You need your ego. You just got to keep him in check. That's all it is. Because like in my process, in that meditation, that's what the ego seemed to have joy in hearing. You know, he was like, okay, so it was me and higher self. Because once I locked up my ego in that dungeon, it was just me and higher self. Like me and higher self through and through for these past 2 years. And making a lot of progress. Like the amount of progress I've made far exceeded a lot, if not everything I did when the ego was making all the decisions. And no, I guess I can say it was pretty equal. It's just that for majority of my life, it was the ego making the decision. But in these last 2 years of me, and that says a lot. When higher self is guiding you and calling the shots, 2 years equates to the, like, how many years is that? 30 years old. When I actually started making decisions, when did my ego first come into play? My ego first became a thing, I would say more so in middle school. So around like 12. So yeah, from 12 to 28, it was all ego. All ego. And no, more so like, no, yeah, that was all ego. But in these past 2 years, where I was just allowing my higher self to guide me, quite literally same amount of accomplishments in a short amount of time. That goes to show you how powerful your higher self is. However, still, don't ever discredit your ego. This is literally one of the most powerful acts of self-love you can do for yourself, is either bringing your ego back to life or not suppressing your ego so much. Allow your ego to express itself, but keep it in check so it doesn't become the thing you don't want it to become. Like pretty much like ego coming out. It's like, hey bro, this is why we locked you up in the first place, or this is why we put you down in the first place, bro. You can't be out here tripping like this, man. You gotta relax. We need you to be on on task with what we trying to do. When each aspect of yourself, your higher, the lower, and the eternal self are all working in unison, then nothing is impossible. Like, man, if I had known any of what I known in college, I would be so much more further than where I am now. And it's like, I'm glad I got to experience everything the way I did. It's all important. But back to the story though. So what happened was, the ego seemed to be more focused on the higher self saying verbatim, like out of the mouth of, yeah, we need you. And that's pretty much what it was. It was like there was some dialogue going back and forth because ego was suppressed, greatly suppressed for over 2 years. And what's also interesting about that during that 2 year time, if I felt off. I wasn't feeling like my true self. I wasn't feeling like my authentic self. And it wasn't until I realized, oh, here I am. Yes, allowing higher self to guide me, I was suppressing. I was suppressing a part of myself, and I'm using that as an example in this video to tell you guys that you cannot, especially moving into the new year that's coming. You cannot. You have to choose you. You cannot continue to choose to deny or suppress yourself. You have to choose yourself every day, all day. And if anybody needs an explanation, that is up to your discretion and to whom you want to explain to. It's all you. It's all you. Was there anything I'm missing? Because like I said before, I've recorded this video. This is the third time, and I'm finna see what this is looking like once I'm done in terms of audio and if any of the footage got just randomly messed up for whatever reason. Yes, this is Master Jamal. Peace, love, prosperity to you guys, and I'll see you next time.